So since the Stunt Creator is coming out next Tuesday, I figured I would do an updated video on sort of what the best cars in each class were for racing. Because, I mean, if you guys are like me, you're looking forward to the Stunt Creator because of the amazing races that the community can come up with. And hopefully by the end of this video, you will know which cars you should or shouldn't be using in these races. Now, this information and all the lap times are actually from Broughy's Google document page on literally every single vehicle in the game, which I will leave a link in the description. It's pretty handy, but I figured I would sort of put it into video form. Also, the last thing I'll say before we hop into the times is that unless you're like truly into competitive racing, unless you're playing against other sort of pro racers, then ultimately it's going to come down to the driver. I mean, for the most part, as long as you don't use like the lowest end car in the class, you, if you're a good driver, will beat most of the people in random races. And actually, well, if you're playing the Rockstar Creator races, we all know you cannot turn non-contact on. So again, that point, it's going to come down to the drivers, and we all know random drivers, all they do is hit you. So like, just because you use the best car in the class doesn't guarantee you a win. Anyway, for whatever reason, we're going to start with the boat class first. If you find yourself racing in boats, if you want to know what boat is the fastest, there are three that I will tell you about. The first one is the Speeder. This one actually is the best lap time, coming in at 132.761. So if you were wondering, use this boat because it's the fastest. The other two are the Jetmax, which is kind of a similar boat to the Speeder. And then the third one is the Dinghy. This one, and by the way, the Jetmax comes in at 133.025, and the Dinghy is 134.694. Those are the top three in the boat class. Another one I figured I'd throw in here, the commercial class, which is like the trucks. So actually the first one, the top of the line, is the Benson, coming in at 135.125, and then the second one, for whatever reason, is the Phantom at 136.149. Now, getting into some actual useful classes, the compacts, there are two I will tell you guys about. The Burrito RA, this is actually the top of the line, and it comes in at 111.272. It blows the next best car, the Rhapsody, which is this one, in by 4 seconds. This one only comes in at 115.9. So if you're using compacts, definitely go with the Burrito. If you're in the coupe category, start with the Zion. The Zion is the top of the line. This one comes in at 107.949. Next up, we actually have the Felon. This one comes in at 108.337. And then not too far behind it, only 0.4 seconds behind the Felon, we have the Exemplar coming in at 108.746. In case anyone was wondering about the bicycles, the race bike is the fastest at 208. And there's like the other ones aren't even close. So if you're ever finding yourself in a bicycle race, which I don't even know if they have them, but if you ever do, use the race bike. Also, helicopters, in case anyone was wondering what the fastest was, the Swift Deluxe is actually the top of the line. And then literally like right behind it is the regular Swift. And then literally right behind that one is the Volatus. So the three, well, the two super, well, I guess one's super expensive, but the Swifts and then the Volatus, which I think is the new one. So if you're looking for that, there you go. Motorcycles, now there's a ton to choose from here, and the top three are really close to each other. The Batty actually comes in at number one at 59 seconds, 0.341. And then literally right behind it is the Akuma, coming in at 59.644. Right behind it is the Hakachu, which is actually not under a minute. The Hakachu is 1 minute and 0.76, so about 1 second slower than the Akuma. And then after it, we actually have the Double T, which is a bike that I like rarely see anyone ever using. But this one comes in at 101.082. And then in case you were wondering about the two most recent ones, the Cliffhanger actually comes before the Gargoyle. This one is 102.59, where the Gargoyle is 102.628. Moving to muscle cars, we have four here. So the top of the line is the Sabre Turbo Custom. Well, you know, if you don't have this car, I'd go out and buy it because it looks amazing and it's got some really great customization options. But the lap time it actually has is 107.866. Next up is actually one of the new cars that just came out, the Dominator race car, or the Pisswasser Dominator. This one actually comes in at 108.569, so about a second, 0.3 slower than the Sabre Turbo. Behind this is the regular Dominator, and this one comes in at 109.85, so about, again, a second, 0.2 slower than the race car variant. And then right after it is the Dukes, which comes in at 109.836, which is literally the same time for the most part as the Dominator. So far, I guess, except for the compact class, we've had cars that were relatively competitive. I mean, none of these cars, again, except for the Burrito, really dominate its class. But then we get into the off-road category, and the BF400, the new bike or dirt bike that they added, this one just, it smokes every other off-road vehicle. It's really unfair. Like, I mean, I guess if you're on a bike, you're at a disadvantage a little bit because you can get knocked off or whatever. But, like, the dirt bikes are just so much better than the trucks that are in the game in the off-road category. But this one actually comes in at 103.263. And then the second best is actually the Sanchez, which, again, is another, dirt bike. And this one comes in at 106.635. So 3 seconds difference between the B400 and the Sanchez. After this is where we actually get into the new trucks that were added. The Desert Raid comes in literally like 0.1 seconds above the trophy truck, but the Desert Raid is 107.2, where the trophy truck is 107.3. And again, comparing that to the BF400 is 103. These are 4 seconds slower. This next class is another class that's kind of broken, the sedan class, and this one, the Schalter V12 Armored, is just like, is dominant. It comes in at 106.433, and then the next one is the regular Schalter, and this one comes in at 110.4, so that's a 4 second difference between the two. And then right after this is actually the Schalter LWB Armored, coming in at 111.165. So the Schalter class just beats every other sedan, but the Schalter V12 Armored beats all the other Schafters in that list. Now moving into the sports category, getting back into some more competitive classes. This category is probably one of the most balanced, and you have a lot of different options to choose from. So surprisingly, the Elegy, which is a free car to some people, is actually, or has the fastest lap time. Now, I know a lot of people probably aren't going to use this because there's not much customization. It doesn't look the best. Some of the other cars look better and all that, but the LG actually comes in with the best time, like I said, at 103.542. Right behind it is the Jester race car, coming in at 103.731, so literally just a 0.2 difference there. Not really that much. But right after this, we have the Masacro race car, which is 104.031. So between the top three there, that's only a 0.5 difference. Again, that's not going to really matter much in terms of racing. After this, we actually have the regular Masacro, which comes in at 104.102. So not even that much difference between the race car variant. And then we actually have the Feltzer, which is another car that I bet will surprise people, just because, people think of the DLC cars as the fastest, but the Feltzer and the LG, they're holding their weight against these other DLC vehicles. But this one actually comes in right behind the regular Masacro at 104.137. So honestly, between the first five, the LG, the Jester, Masacro race car, Masacro regular, and then the Feltzer, there's only a 0.6 difference between them, and that's not going to really matter much. So you have a lot of different options here. Actually, behind the Feltzer, I'll just continue the list. We have the regular Jester coming in at 104.7, and then right behind it, we have the new 770 actually coming in at 104.9. So between all of those, there's only a 1.4 second difference in lap time. That's really good in my book. Now, the Sports Classics, this is another class that's kind of broken. Probably a lot of you guys know this already, but the Sterling GT just completely breaks this class. It comes in at 106.8, and then the next one is actually the Z-Type coming in at 110.204. So 4 seconds between the top and the second one. But competitive with the Z-Type, we actually have the Pagale, and this one comes in at 110.637. Also notable, I don't have the time on me, but I'm pretty sure the Monroe is another one that's pretty good in the Sports Classics category. I'll do the SUV class next. I'll save the Super class for last, but the SUV class, as many of you guys know, the Contender is actually the top of the line in this category. It comes in with its lap time at 109.536. And then next up, we actually have the XLS Armored version coming in at 111.835. So a 2-second difference between the Contender and this one. And then another 2 seconds for the Huntley S, which comes in at 113.704. So not as broken as some of the other classes, but if you are doing SUV races, the Contender is definitely a must. The second to last one before we get into the supers, if for whatever reason you ever find yourself in a van race, the Gang Burrito and the Rumpo Custom are the ones to choose. The Gang Burrito actually comes in right in front of the Rumpo Custom with a lap time of 118.245, and then the Rumpo Custom actually comes in at 118.510, so literally just 0.3 of a difference. Finally, moving into the supers, there is a bit of controversy behind the top car in this list, only because it's glitched, and Rockstar still haven't patched it yet, so I don't know if they are ever going to patch it, but the Annis, the RE7B, this car is just incredible, at least in terms of acceleration, top speed, and traction. Well, actually, no, acceleration's pretty bad because it's not an all-wheel drive, so like if you ever spin out in a race, you're going to notice, you know, pretty significantly that it takes forever to, like, get going again. It reminds me of, like, you know, the Flintstones, the guy, Barney Rubble, where he just runs in place for a long time. That's kind of what it reminds me of, but it actually does have the best lap time, like I said, at 57.724 seconds, and that really does smoke every other thing in this category, unfortunately, because the next one we actually have is the ETR1, and this one also, to get this lap time, for both this one and the Annis, you need to put the carbon spoiler on, because you won't get these lap times if you don't put the carbon spoiler on, but this one is the next best, and this one is 59.15 seconds, so a good 2 seconds between the Annis and the ETR1. Right behind it, though, we actually have the Tyrus, which comes in at 59.357 seconds. Those are the only 3 supercars that are under a minute. This one, unlike the Annis, actually has a lot better acceleration, in my opinion, but again, you're not going to get that super top speed, which if you're doing the super, like, long races where you're not really cutting corners or anything, the Annis definitely is the best way to go, just because, and you'll see it if you ever race against one, it just takes off in a straightaway. The fourth supercar, though, we actually have is the X80. The obvious negative to this one is the fact that it costs $2.7 or $2.8 million. Its lap time is actually 101.226. The thing is with this one, and this is just preference, obviously, but to me, I don't like the handling on this one. It feels stiff. Like, unlike the next one, the T20, I like the T20's handling a lot more, but if you do like the handling on the X80, it's a really good car. But speaking of that T20, this one comes in with a lap time of 101.894, so only 0.6 seconds behind the Proto. And then the one right after it is the Osiris, surprisingly, coming in at 102.061, so only like 0.2 seconds or so behind the T20. Next up, we have the good old Zentorno, which mine's actually a mod. This is a Lamborghini in real life, obviously, but the Zentorno, just imagine it being a Zentorno, coming in at 102.069, so literally right on par with the Osiris, only 0.00, like, what, 7 or 8 seconds behind the Osiris. And then the last two, which I'll talk about, the FMJ coming in at 102.528, not a bad car. A little pricey, but not bad. And then we have the Entity XF to top it all off, coming out at 102.706. So between all of them, you have a lot of different options. Again, if you're in a like super hardcore competitive race, then yeah, you're gonna want to use some of the newer cars that came out, like the glitched ones, the Annis, the ETR1. But honestly, if you're in a regular race, you could totally beat someone using the Annis with the Entity, just because if you're a better driver than them, then that's really what it's going to come down to. Also, I guess if you're lucky as well, because all the flips and stuff, you got to land correct, you got to make sure you don't hit other people, you got to make sure other people don't hit you. Anyway, that is it with the video. Thank you all for watching. I know it was kind of a long video, but hopefully this helps you guys out, in your racing needs. Drop a like if you did enjoy it. That'd be much appreciated. Again, you can go check out the doc page from Broughy in the description, so thanks to him for making it. Also, go ahead and subscribe if you did enjoy the video and want to see more awesome GTA content like it. See you all later, though. As always, it's your boy Saintsfan. I'm out. Peace.